right. Hey, good middle of the week to you. It's Wednesday, December 13th, and Christmas is just around the corner. So hope you're ready. Hope things been going good for you, and life is good. So, man, I spent yesterday afternoon with a friend of mine, Andy, just hanging out, chatting, and just kind of strategizing about life and ministry and different things like that. It was really good. Met a man to pick up a Christmas gift for one of my grandkids that was being sold, marketplace kind of thing. And so it was a good night. Got home a little late and hung out with the Tamster. And up early this morning, just writing and studying and just enjoying my mornings. I love my mornings, and so it's just good and rich. House is quiet. I think really better in that environment, and so it was good. Hope yours is. So hey, let's jump into some truth. We have flipped the page. We are in Luke chapter 14, and it's somewhat of a familiar, consistent story that we look at today. And so I just want to kind of draw down and kind of get back to where we were. We're at the area in life of Jesus where he's not too many months away from the crucifixion, ultimately the resurrection, and having accomplished all that God had for him to do while he was on this earth. And so he is at that point where there's a clear divide. I'm going to keep saying this because I think it's important that we remind ourselves of this, that he has come as the light of the world, yet the people of darkness. And so this is what's going on. There are only two forces in this world. There's light and there's dark. There's Satan and there's God, right? There's a broad way and a narrow way. These are all the things. It's a black and white issue. There's not a lot of gray. We tend to want to gray things up, muddy the waters, but it's a pretty clear divide. You're either in or out. You're either all in or you're not. And so this is how the scriptures portray these kind of things. And so while the crowds were following Jesus, the Pharisees, steeped in darkness, wanted to continue to drag the people into this darkness as well because it was profitable for them that people stay in darkness. I think the Pharisees didn't know. They're blinded by their own stupidity. And so they've decided that this legalistic system that they had created and have been using for hundreds of years was the best hope. And so they have mingled Moses with the Mishnah. Mishnah was their own traditions. And so they've mingled those things. And that's the one thing that you really can't do in life. The gospel cannot be mingled with anything else. Not all roads lead to heaven. You can't go, well, I like a little bit of Jesus, I like a little bit of Buddha. I like a little bit of Jesus, I like a little bit of Hinduism. I like a little bit of Jesus, I like a little bit of Muslim or Muhammad, Allah, right? You can't have that. It's a pure and undefiled religion that Jesus speaks of. And it is that our only hope is in God and him alone and not in any ounce of ourselves. That the kind of people that find themselves on the side of light are those who know their poverty spiritually, that there is nothing in them that will merit favor before God because we have been defiled by sin, right? And so there is this mourning, that there is this, until we get to the place where we mourn over that reality, that's what leads us to repentance in that sense, that we mourn the fact that I can't get myself holy. Then we hunger after righteousness. This is the beatitude. And that hunger is when God then invades us and he fills us. He fills us because we have hungered after him. We have humbled ourselves. We have cried out to him. He has heard our cry, and he has deposited his spirit within us to give us and to satisfy that hunger and to walk in light. And the Spirit leads us into all truth. This is true. This is what's right. What had happened was the Pharisees had confused all of these things and then drugged the people of Israel away into it. So Jesus has pronounced kind of a judgment on Israel, on the Pharisees. And that was the last statement that we looked at yesterday, right? In chapter 13, he says this, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who have been sent to her, right? They're killing the light. They're just putting a bushel over the light, burying it, doing whatever they can, steeped in their traditions. And he says, how often I wanted to gather your children together, just as a hen gathers her young under her wings. And yet you were unwilling. I really wanted to embrace you. I wanted so bad this to happen. Behold, your house is left desolate. That temple area that you think you're going to find God in, God just left the building. It's over. And so your house is left desolate. And he said, I say to you, you will not see me until you say, blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. God said, I'm putting a pause on you. I'm going to let Israel do what Israel does. I'm going to go after the Gentiles. I'm going to bring them in. And there's so many parables that speak of that, which we'll get into as we move through Luke, of going out in the highways and byways, right? So this seed that was promised of Abraham that would be a blessing to Israel was a blessing to all nations. Israel would be a blessing to all of us. They gave us the law. They gave us Jesus, right? This is what they've done. And that seed, Jesus, is going to bless all of us so that the gospel isn't just for a group of people anymore, a nation or a tribe. It is for any who name the name of Christ, right? Who confess him with their mouth. And so he says, but there's going to come a day when I come back, then you and I'll have that conversation. He's telling the Israelites, and then you'll say, bless, you'll see, you will be awakened. Israel will be saved. And so this is what he's speaking of. Now, that all happens as a backdrop. So I say that because I think it's important, because it says it happened to that. Now, so that doesn't mean this is in sequential order. It simply means this was that, and now something new. And so Jesus has been invited into the house of a Pharisee, and we're going to have several conversations about that this week and next, because it's a lengthy little 20 verses full of Jesus having a conversation while at Sunday or Sabbath lunch, right? So that's where we are. Now, in spite of all the truth-telling, right? All the miracles, all of the love and the grace and the mercy, the hypocrisy of legalism, the Pharisees, right? Their mentality, it had really blinded all of them. And so you see that tension. You see people continuing to follow him, but yet at the same time, they're being told, he does that stuff by the demons. You don't have to worry. He's not Messiah. I know you were hoping, but he's not, right? And so there's this twisted, perverted deal that Satan does to continue to keep people in darkness. And so they had chosen, according to John's gospel, darkness, right? That light came into the world, but the world loved darkness. That's what John says in his gospel. And so that's what's going on here. The angel of light, who Satan is, right? Sometimes he comes as a roaring lion. Sometimes as an angel of light. By that angel of light, it means he comes like telling you, hey, I want to help you get better. Sometimes he wants to just get you in the muck. And sometimes he wants you to go, let me give you a nice little substitute, make you feel good about yourself. It's a placebo, so to speak. But it will make you feel like you're doing something to merit God's favor, but you're still as lost as could be. You're still in darkness. It's just a different shade of darkness. That's what it means, an angel of light. So, but why? Well, because they've mingled. Moses, the true, unadulterated law meant to point us to Christ, mingled it with their rules, and now it's become a legalistic system. This is the problem with all religion. So that truth and heart are lost. They're at that place where I'm almost good enough, right? I'm close, but no cigar, right? And that's the whole world. The whole world is trying to get to that place. The whole world feels like, hey man, we're really close. We're almost good enough. That's the whole deal with Islam. It's the whole deal with Hinduism. It's the whole deal with Buddhism. It's the whole deal with anything other than Christ and Christ alone. That's what's going on. So they were convinced that they're good enough. Now, let's get to the setting now, because that kind of is the background about everything that we're going to see as we go forward. It says, and let's just read the story together. It's just 6 verses. It happened that when he went into the house of one of the leaders of the Pharisees on the Sabbath to eat bread, they were watching him closely. And there in front of him was a man suffering from edema. And Jesus responded and said to the lawyers and the Pharisees, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not? But they kept silent. And he took hold of him and healed him and sent him away. And he said to them, which one of you will have a son or an ox fall into a well and will not immediately pull him out on the Sabbath? They gave no reply to that. Now, so I've titled this "Trapped at Dinner." They think they're trapping Jesus, but Jesus ultimately set the trap against themselves. And so this is what we see. So the setting is one of the Sabbaths where Jesus had gone into one of the synagogues, probably preached, taught, did what he does. The Pharisee, one of them that kind of was at that same place, had invited the leaders of the Pharisees. He's one of the leaders of the Pharisees, has invited Jesus into his home for Sabbath dinner, right? We do a lot of Sunday dinner, right? You know, people come in, all of that. That's what's going on there. They're eating bread because that's the meal mostly on the Sabbath. There's not a lot because cooking in their world couldn't be done, and so you were left to just kind of eat bread, something that you could have cooked the day before, and now it was there, and so that's what's going on. Now, not all Pharisees are hardcore against Jesus. There was Nicodemus, and there were others. I'm not sure where this man falls into. It seems to me that he's laid a trap at his house. And that he was a part of the trap setting. So I think this was a setup, right? But you can't be sure. It's just that one of the Pharisees, invited Jesus in. I doubt he's still trying to find truth out of Jesus. I think they're trying to find a way to kill him. This is what has been consistently said all the way through all of the Gospels collectively together. So they're sitting at this house, and so as it would have unfolded, there would have been a table, and then there would have been other places, and so you would occasionally have just people coming in and out. I mean, the Pharisees were somewhat seen as those who were caretakers in a sense of the people in the synagogue. They weren't the priests, but they were the legal scholars, and so people wanted to have them around. They loved the seat of honor, so I'm sure there's a table in this house, and the Pharisees, there were more than one in there, they were in there, and they were at that seat of honor. Jesus had gotten a seat of honor at the table so that they could trap him, and then you had some other people, and so this is what was going on. Now, so you got Jesus, you got Pharisees, you got prominent people that the Pharisees are, wanting to extrapolate some money out of, and different things like that. And then you would have had some stragglers, right? It's like the woman who came in and wiped Jesus' feet and anointed him, right? You got those things. And so here potentially is a man that's in here too, that's pointed out, that has edema, however you choose to say that, which is water retention, right? It's what happens to a pregnant woman when she's like great with child, her legs swell and ankles, all of that. Organ failure will create that. You've seen people who have that bodily fluid. I've got a friend of mine who has some sickness things, and man, they're taking fluid off of his stomach. Because the body keeps filling itself up. It's literally drowning itself in its own fluid, and we'll get to that in a minute. But that's kind of what's going on. So he's in the room. Now, some would say that is a form of uncleanliness. So the fact that he's in the room is a little odd. Just want that pointed out. And we'll see some other things in a minute. I believe that's the trap. I believe this man is the trap. They invited him. He's got to be thinking, man, why are they inviting me? Well, because they wanted to use your plight, your difficulty, to harm the Creator. So this is what's going on. So it says they were watching him closely. Right now, that's a telltale sign. That watching closely, that's that oddity. You've been in a place where you think they're looking at me like they're studying me to try and find something. Right, that's what's going on there. So they're watching him closely to trap him is what they're doing. To undo his work in that sense, right? To learn of his weaknesses, just to figure things out so they can trap him. They want him gone. They've already plotted to kill him. They just need to have enough evidence to present to the courts in order for someone to go, yeah, he should die. And so this is all that this is about. Now, so this is a common thing. In Luke 6, they did the same thing with the one that was paralyzed, the withered hand kind of thing. They will do it later. We'll see in Luke 14 where they're filled with rage because he violates the Sabbath. This was their deal. Let's get him on the Sabbath. This is what we're trying to drill down. Why do you people not clean your hands? Why do your people not clean their hands on the Sabbath when they do this? And how about that? And all of these things, right? And so this is their trap. So a man's in front of him. He's swollen, no doubt, whether it's his feet and ankles, whether it's his stomach, like my friend, where it just looks like, man, something's not right. You've seen people who have swollen faces and things like that. So here's this man sitting in front of him. And so only a few reasons why he would be there, really. I mean, maybe because he's family, and so there's kind of that obligation, or because it's a trap. I believe it's a trap, and I'll explain to you as we get there. Now, here's what happens. That's the setting. Verse 3, he says, and Jesus responded and said to the lawyers and the Pharisees. So see, they're all there, scribes, Pharisees, the whole table, and there may have been more in the room because they're all kind of curious, like maybe today we'll trap Jesus, right? That's their whole goal. Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not? Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath? Now, they've already said no. You got 6 days to heal. That's what we just looked at in Luke 6. Well, I say just, but not that long ago, right? Yes, you got 6 days to heal people. You don't have to. You chose the wrong day, not on the Sabbath, bub. We don't do that here. And so, but they didn't say that right now. They were silent. Now, either all of a sudden they were intimidated because the trap was set and he's in the trap, just waiting for the thing to fall, or they're afraid that if they say yes or no, it will interrupt their opportunity to trap Jesus. Whatever the reason, they're just silent. So he took hold of it. Interesting word. To seize him, right? To firmly take hold. Doesn't mean out of anger or angst or anything else. It just means he firmly took hold of this man. It wasn't a casual thing. That same word is used to sometimes violently grab some. That's not this. It's the same word used to grab up a child, to whatever. It's that kind of word. But it's interesting that they use that phrase that he took hold of. He wanted there to be no mistake, right? Unclean or not, Jesus takes hold of him, draws him close to him, heals him, sends him away. No fanfare, no, be healed or your sins are forgiven. The man is sitting there. Jesus gets up, brings him to him, potentially embraces him, heals him. Whether he whispered a word, thought it, declared it, we don't know. He healed him. And then he says, hey, you can go on. Now, that phrase, you can go on, almost sounds like, hey, you served your purpose for them. They didn't really want you here in the beginning, right? I mean, it's kind of that kind of thing. Because otherwise, why would he not just stay there and everybody go, wow, look what happened? But Jesus sends him on out. Because I think the only point of him being there was to trap Jesus. Well, then it says, and he said to them, and this is where it gets interesting, right? Which one of you will have a son or an ox fall into a well? Now, that could be dangerous things, right? That happens. You're in a well. You see a kid down there. You're going to go, the Sabbath. Hey, I'll be back tomorrow. You see your ox in there, and it's struggling, and it's getting weaker by the minute, trying to stay afloat and try to crawl out, and it's in a panic, and it's doing all the hoof thing and all of that, and you go, you'll be all right. I'll be back tomorrow. That's obviously, you don't. You do that. So there's a child or an ox in a well drowning, or before Jesus is a man drowning in his own fluid. And so now they're trapped. And so he says, will he not immediately pull him out on the Sabbath? They had no response. Humiliated again. Really. I mean, that's what happened. And man, I love these stories. I don't know what truth we find in here that we can take and walk through our day, other than that, man, God is sovereign, and let's realize that He and He alone can produce holiness. This whole living in darkness, not a healthy place. Love you guys. Can't wait to share more with you in the morning.